Welcome back to Cosmic Comics. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the first appearance of the Serpent Crown within the pages of Marvel and unraveling the story of Paul Destine. This episode will cross over into a number of different titles with timelines that keep going back and forth if they were to be read in the order in which they were printed. I'm going to keep to a sequential order for the story as found in Avengers Annual number 18, but will fill in most of the details with the original source material. Sometime before the 1920s, a young Paul Destine has discovered that he has real psychic powers. He used these powers to get himself a job in a small carnival, working as a mentalist, but was looking for ways to get a leg up in life. While on the road, Destine received a tip that a donation of rare out-of-print books on magic had recently been donated to a local library. As Paul approaches the library, he comments on the fact that he felt as though he were physically drawn there. Although we are never directly told so, it seems likely that this feeling of being drawn to the library is a result of Set's influence. Destine learns much, but time and time again, the tomes refer to a mysterious people known only as the Ancients, a race who had mastered the science of telepathy. In order to discover more information about the Ancients, Destine needed to travel to Antarctica. He signed up aboard an icebreaker, Oracle, which was captained by Leonard Mackenzie, future father of Prince Namor the Submariner. As the two approach the location that Destine has indicated, their different outlooks on life become apparent. Captain Mackenzie is happy the others in the party stayed behind because he is concerned about their safety, in contrast to Destine, who doesn't want to share the discoveries inside. They turn a bend and run across the dynamo that the Ancients built their township around. The same dynamo that Psychotos overloaded in an effort to destroy the Serpent Crown. Set himself had intervened and preserved a portion of this dynamo. The captain is ready to return to his men for help moving forward, but Destine questions if they should get others involved. As the captain leaves for help, Destine attempts to hack through the ice. He breaks through to the dynamo, but as the device comes to life, an avalanche begins. Is this an avalanche if they're inside a cave, or is it a cave-in? Either way, upon waking up, he was quickly worried about how he would survive the not an avalanche. I mean, seriously, it's a cave-in. Paul looks around and sees a glowing helmet, which he calls the Helmet of Power. Note that this is the Serpent Crown, but you can't see it because it's covered in the substance Beckett coated it in after the Lumerians stole it from Naga and brought it to Antarctica. The crown placed Destine in a state of suspended animation for decades, while it increased his physical and mental might far beyond that of a normal human. Upon emerging, Paul Destine renamed himself Destiny. And while he had slept, Set had become aware that the Atlanteans, whom he had sworn vengeance against, were currently living in the Antarctic Ocean. So once Destiny ended up coming awake, with Set's influence, he then used the helmet to create earthquakes under Atlantis. Destiny didn't know the location of Atlantis and had to find it by using the psychic powers of the crown, most likely with a little help from Set. Hands down, this is the biggest use of power we've seen by the crown to date. Shaking nations and locating peoples via long-range telepathic probe that's all completely new. He messed up Atlantis pretty bad, too. I mean, bad enough that they had to rebuild the whole place, calling it New Atlantis. Additionally, during the quakes, Namor's mother Princess Finn and his grandfather, the Emperor Thakor, both perished. Namor is sent by the Emperor when the quakes start to investigate the source of them, and more accurately, to see why the humans are attacking them once more. Namor leaves with a group of fighters known as the Flower of Atlantis, 6 hand-picked warriors. An hour later, Namor and the Flower of Atlantis approach the outer crust of the subarctic continent. As they arrive, they are greeted by a blinding, concussive blast that leaves only Namor living. Namor emerges from the water and somehow immediately finds a cave leading to Destiny. Namor attacks Destiny after learning that he was responsible for both the earthquakes in Atlantis and the death of the Flower of Atlantis. Unfortunately, Namor is no match for Destiny, who can read his every thought. Soon Destiny takes control of Namor's body and then his mind. Namor is dispatched to New York City, while Destiny returns to suspended animation for another 5 years. He feels after this time he will have reached his full potential and will be capable of summoning Namor once again, and this time destroying him. Namor awakes dazed, unable to remember who he is or why he's here. He soon finds himself on the wrong side of the law and living on the streets. Days become weeks, which soon become years. His time on the streets came to an end way back in Fantastic Four, Volume 1, Issue Number 4, from May of 1961, when a young Johnny Storm spent the night at a Bowery flophouse. This issue marks Namor's first appearance in the Silver Age of comics. A few guys are attempting to get Namor to show off his strength while Johnny carries on about how nobody is as strong as the Submariner. I'm sure Benjamin Grimm would have loved hearing that. One of the guys gets too pushy, and Namor throws a punch. Namor takes out the guy closest to him and sits back down. Suddenly a small mob is ready to attack him, but Johnny Storm steps in to save him. Johnny then uses his flame to give Namor a shave and a haircut, revealing him to be the Submariner. Once the coast is clear, Johnny turns on his flame and flies Namor to the ocean, where he drops him off in New York Harbor. As soon as he hits the water, Namor instantly remembers who he is, and without even bothering to stop and thank the Human Torch, he takes off to return to Atlantis. Upon arriving there, he finds nothing more than radioactive ruins. Namor blames the humans and their atomic test, and thus begins another round of his long rivalry with the surface dwellers. Sometime in the late 1960s, Destiny begins reaching out to Namor in his dreams. In response, Namor becomes drawn towards Antarctica, but doesn't recognize that he's been there before. Namor locates the city of the Ancients and soon finds the man called Destiny. This, the final panel of Tales to Astonish, issue 101, is what some would call the first appearance of the Serpent Crown in the Marvel Universe. Others would say no. What we see in this issue is the Helmet of Power, with the Serpent Crown not being revealed until the Submariner Volume 1, issue number 9, when the substance currently coating it is removed. Which do you think should be considered the first appearance? Please let me know in the comments section below. It's pretty amazing to think that I'm 8 parts into this series, and only now have I reached the first appearance of the Serpent Crown within the Marvel Universe, which means that everything that's been a part of this series so far is all plot lines that were written after the fact in relation to the Serpent Crown. Despite if you think that this issue is the first appearance of the Serpent Crown or Submariner number 9, it doesn't change the fact that the entirety of this series stems from this one single panel of comic book history. Namor and Destiny battle over one another, wherein Destiny tells Namor most of what I've covered in this video so far. Namor gets overzealous in his attack and brings the ceiling of the cave down upon him. Destiny believes Namor to be dead, which really doesn't make much sense. If Destiny has such incredible natural psychic powers, combined with those of the Helm of Power or Serpent Crown, whatever you want to call it, I would think he would be capable of telling whether or not Namor was still alive. But, maybe they didn't think that some random prick would be critiquing their storytelling 50 plus years later. Paul Destine returns in the Submariner Volume 1, Issue 7, running for the President of the United States of America as the Man of Destiny. Destine had taken off to New York, where Set longingly gazed upon the civilization of the shore. But whether due to his latent mental ability or the coating put upon the crown, or perhaps both, Destine was capable of ignoring Set and focusing on his own personal conquest. That was the line given to us in the annual, but I'm not entirely sure I'm buying it. It seems as though Set is keeping some level of control. If we look at the original story from the Submariner, then we see that Namor and the Atlantean race are going to be Destine's first people that he's going to turn into slaves as soon as he becomes president. Paul Destine really doesn't have that much of a reason to hate the Atlantean people, so I'm calling this one in favor of Set still exuding a gentle touch over his wishes. It's revealed that Destine is controlling those around him when they hear him speak. Therefore, Destine's plan is to use his position as a political candidate to speak to the nation and thus control their minds. While Destine is on the air giving his speech, Namor breaks into the television station and proceeds to get in an all-out brawl with Destiny. Things heat up when Namor tosses Destine near the location of the helmet, and he picks it up and puts it on, and then one blast from the Helmet of Power sends Namor through the roof of the building. Destine hurls everything he has at Namor, who passes out from the pressure. Destine then takes Namor to the edge of the building, where he picks him up, and he hurls him towards the street. Citizens on the street are shocked to see Namor's lifeless body strike the asphalt. His ego completely full, Paul Destine decides he no longer needs the Helmet of Power, and that he should levitate downward to the masses below. Destine steps off the ledge, but the levitation never kicks in, and he plummets to his death in what appears to be a suicide to the onlookers below. Suddenly, Namor appears on the roof, elating a shocked Dorma. Namor explains that Destiny couldn't accept the fact that Namor had withstood his full onslaught, and because of this, his mind gave in to madness, and he assumed that he picked up and had defeated Namor, when in truth, Namor was, I guess, laying low, recovering, something like that. Watching Paul Destine go crazy, it's never really explained. An important aside to mention as I wrap this story up is the fact that Set's influence in this story was never actually part of the original tale back in the Submariner stories and Tales to Astonish. Instead, Set's influence was retconned in after the fact through the annuals. So, to find out what happens to the Helmet of Power, and when all that gunk finally comes off the Serpent Crown, tune into the next episode. Feel free to hit any of the buttons below. I'm out.